move on or close this hearing. All right, Ms. Spencer, could you please come up to the podium? Ms. Spencer, the opportunity zone was mentioned. The city of Bremerton was fortunate to receive an opportunity zone designation actually for the downtown sub-area. We don't know what that all entails though, do we?
No, we don't. The first step in the Opportunity Zone, which is a new initiative by the federal government, first opportunity under the Opportunity Zone legislation was that the governors in all of the U.S. had to designate certain census tracts as opportunity zones. That was the first step. So Bremerton was fortunate, and there was also 2 census tracts in Port Orchard that were designated as opportunity zones. Those are the only 3 that were designated for Kitsap County by the governor. And then the next step is the feds have to set standards for how the investments work within the opportunity zones and setting all the rules for that. And my understanding is that's underway right now. We don't know what those rules will look like at this point in time.
So my point in bringing that up, in case you guys want to call a point of order on me, is that this is a potential, this will be a tool in the toolbox. The developers don't know exactly what it entails. It could or could not have a positive effect on the MFTE. It could allow the developers to make more money, so maybe we could tailor the MFT program more to what Mayor Wheeler likes. The point is, we don't know. So why should we make a decision to change the MFTE program? As Councilmember Goodnow mentions, we've only had 2 projects in actually 12 years. That's just an observation. Over the years, the council has taken on ordinances, areas they want to improve upon. Councilmember Doggs, I remember, spearheaded the taxi cab ordinance, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilmember Doggs, but you invited the taxi cab driver community in before we wrote the ordinance. We wanted their input because this directly affected them. Yep. I went through a similar process when I wrote the rental property ordinance requiring 100% participation by landlords in notifying the police. So you can probably get where my next question is. Before this was proposed and brought before the council and actually the moratorium, Ms. Spencer, did you reach out to any of the affected developers to get their input on this?
We brought forward the proposal that the mayor wanted you to consider so that there could be a public debate on the options for changing the MFTE program. Okay,
so in a roundabout way, you answered my question, but you can see the point I'm trying to make, that before we had this public hearing, before we tried to change an ordinance which has such huge impact one way or the other, we probably should have sat down with the developers and had this discussion. That's just a point. Okay, I know, one more question. I'm sorry, you're still on the hot seat.
You looked down, I thought you were done with me.
May have more than one question, but we all live in a competitive environment, right? Capitalistic society. The MFTE is not just solely for Bremerton. So we have to look at our surrounding communities, our competitors. Port Orchard, do they have an MFTE?
Yes, Port Orchard is the only other jurisdiction in Kitsap that has one.
And do they have the 8-year MFTE?
Yes, they do. We've looked at their code. Theirs is an identical copy of ours. Okay, so right down to even the citations of the numbers of the municipal code.
Yeah, they probably copied it from us because we were first. So, just saying. Anyway, you see where I'm getting at. If we got the 8-year MFTE, you got the flow of capital, and Port Orchard is a desirable area for redevelopment. It's got the same type of blighted zone designation, I believe, that wants incentive. We have to be very careful here. We could, what's that term? Kill the goose that laid the golden egg here if we're not careful and respectful of our developers. And I want to say that. I want to reach out to the developing community and say, in my opinion, you're not part of the problem, you're part of the solution. I really, truly believe that. And the evidence is you can see around you. It was mentioned. Here's the latest proposal that I'm looking at, a list of potential future projects. The Marina Square. Now that's all going to hopefully occur on our downtown Bremerton waterfront. up until 2-3 weeks ago, that was owned by the Port of Bremerton. We're talking about lost property taxes. What does the Port of Bremerton pay on property taxes? Well, it's like us. It's tax exempt. So is there any benefit? They run a parking lot on it. Is that the highest and best use for a parking lot? Heck no, it's not. So Soundwest Group comes in, they buy it from the Port of Bremerton, and they have a plan for 113 apartments, plus a hotel, by the way, which we need, the city of Bremerton, to help our conference center expansion to pencil out, right? So what I'm getting at is there are multiple benefits for all this development, and I agree with the majority of my council members' opinions I heard tonight talk about, bringing the developers to the table, exploring options. One thing that I was thinking that Councilmember Gorman mentioned, look, if the city council can show fiscal restraint, when you have one-time money coming in off of these projects, then maybe we set aside a fund for that one-time money off these MFTE projects. And when I'm referring to that big hit for the retail sales tax, that goes away to a dedicated fund. That's something that we can explore for affordable housing. I guess what I'm saying is I'm echoing the sentiments of fellow council members that this time I don't see us making any changes. I'd like to invite the developers, and I believe we need to do this at a council level at this point. We'll bring them in for study sessions and have this discussion about, hey, what do you think we could have as far as tweaks? On a personal level, my opinion, this opportunity zone, we need to find out what this is all about. This is all premature discussion. I do agree we have a problem with affordable housing. We have homelessness issues and whatnot, but this isn't the area to attack by any means. This isn't an area to go ahead and work with the developers and see how we can improve the program for our citizens and maybe get some benefit out of it for the ones that can afford it, these apartments. So I understand that. I'm just thinking that this current approach is the wrong way. Last year, we have 3 new council members that didn't have the benefit of Mr. Larson coming to a study session and showing us a pro forma, showing us how all the numbers work out or how they don't work out for various, the 12-year versus the 8-year. Tonight, we had Mr. Henderson give a pretty good example. Hopefully, you all could follow that. I could. It was pretty simple. And showing a cap rate basically of 6%, which as an investor on my point, I think that's really low for such a risk that he's taking or the developers are taking. The point is we need to have more study session type discussions with the developers before we go ahead and even think about, in my opinion, tweaking, if you will, this ordinance. So.
President Younger, if I could, I know that, some of the comments that you've made, I know that the mayor's thought about a lot, and he offered himself to make the comment, and given that we're on television and we have an audience, it might be a good chance, because he's talked a lot he and I have spoken about setting up this dedicated fund for weatherization and minor home repair and these kinds of things, so he can speak to some of those if you're interested. And
You're throwing a softball up to the mayor.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
go ahead. Mayor Wheeler, come on up.
So those are certainly ideas that especially if you're going to provide incentives, those are ideas that we should consider. They're one-time sales tax construction funds. I was looking forward to bringing forward a weatherization program that was robust, where private landlords in our city and low-income homeowners could apply, and in exchange for 10 or 15 grand. They keep the rent stable, the tenant gets a stable rent, and they get energy bills that are reduced by 30%. And oftentimes, and with this type of program, you can do minor home repairs like wheelchair ramps, porch replacements, stairs replacements. There's a lot you can do with sales tax funds if you're willing to go there. The one time. So and I know, and I appreciate the opportunity, to come up here again. If I could just say one more time, when we're asking our citizens to essentially pick up the tab. Now we've all done the math. You spread the whatever the cost is for an EMS or a fire service or a street repair. It's pretty small when you spread it out. But the problem is you're spreading it out to folks who are being one by one displaced from our city every day to subsidize development they'll never live in. That's not a public benefit, and so you know where I'm coming from. The public benefit starts to happen in this day and age when you have an affordable housing component where somebody might be able to live in that house, has an opportunity. So, council, and as far as a comprehensive plan, I've been laying out what we're doing week by week. Process improvements, technology investments. Our permit production is off the charts. You've given us administrative authority so we can approve final plats. We don't have to spend a month or two now going through a council process. We're working on an infill development toolkit. There's going to be some investment programs that I'm going to bring forward where I want landlords to be able to invest in a property where they can have a main residence in the front, ADU in the back, all of this is designed to increase supply. Basic economic tenet, supply exceeds demand, creates affordability. You think that's happening in this region? I've been on the Growth Management Council now for 8 years. I've been watching the trends. Right now, that is not happening. Growth management is meant to secure your growth in certain areas. So city is going to absorb growth. That's what all the cities do. Within your cities, to preserve your neighborhood, you even concentrate growth further. There is more people coming into this region than housing or land that'll do it. Okay, so supply and demand won't beat this alone. You will never ignore it. That's a basic tenet, but it won't beat it alone. You have to start getting ahead of it and making decisions, bold decisions now that we are profitable here. We are the last place in this region to develop. They're built out in the rest of our county or in the rest of this region. Right now, folks are traveling 2 miles to get to the city core for work in Seattle. Draw a radius around the city core where the big jobs are. Look at every neighborhood that is within a half a mile and a consistent, predictable half-mile commute from that core. You're not even going to find a neighborhood anymore. They've exploded so much. You have one here. This is it. This land is profitable beyond belief. Folks would probably want to let you think that we're chopped liver. We're not. This is a great place to be. Growth is going to occur. Well over 1 million people will come to this region between now and 2050 over the next 30 years. To this region, into this environment where we protect and preserve all of our natural spaces and all of our green areas, our critical areas, streams, lakes, the Puget Sound. I tell you, growth is not going to just run rampant and sprawl will not happen. Growth Management Act is going to ensure that does not happen. Now, the city gets rewarded. That's why we bring home money every couple years, a lot of money for infrastructures because we're playing by the rules. We're concentrating growth and density in our areas. I'll bring forward some other proposals in the fall. This is going to address height and parking. We're going to talk about that. But to say we don't have a comprehensive plan in place, that is not true. We're addressing it from every angle you can do at a local level. I understand all of this, okay? I've been around also. So just in council, if you wait and you do nothing, I want you to know the proposal I had for the moratorium for the 8-year multifamily housing tax exemption. By not accepting that proposal and stopping it, applications continued to come in. You inadvertently subsidize displacement of low-income tenants in one of our units up here, in one of the properties. There's a person there who is now contacting me looking for help. Legally, we're not bound to do anything. Morally, we are. And I will be working on that. But I want you to know you subsidized private development. You displaced low-income tenants. This is the Rose Court Apartments. This is what happened. So I want you to just think cautiously, be careful, but at the same time, treat it with urgency because development will happen fast. It will happen so fast your head will spin. I've been on this growth management. I've met with my regional partners from Snohomish County to Pierce County to King County. We travel every day. Now they have to travel. It's a 2-hour commute for them when it used to be an hour. and it's getting worse.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Wheeler.
All right. And
So-
I appreciate the opportunity to address you, Council.
No, and so I have some questions for you since you're up at the podium.
Sure.
First of all, I want to point out the fact that bringing up the moratorium brought the land rush, if you will, of the applications. It was your idea to bring up the moratorium without consulting council. We all understand that, do we not, Mayor Wheeler?
So, Council President, if I had brought that up or had a discussion with our development community and partners as you recommended, do you not think that wouldn't have happened also? And so the moratorium, I gave all the council members a phone call. I gave you all significant time, all the time that you needed, each one of you, except Ms. Sullivan.
Less than 24 hours.
Sometimes you have to respond fast. You may not be used to that. I hope that we can, if your mayor is willing to spend that much time on a phone call and explain it, that you can at least give it some thought, give us a thoughtful pause, and that's all I was looking for. And then you're not inadvertently subsidizing displacement of low-income tenants.
So, okay, I'm not going to get into a broad discourse with you, Mayor Wheeler. I think there's a disconnect in that you want to, at this point, you're saying that you're going to tell the council this is what you're going to consider. Keep in mind that the council makes the policy decision. What I'm suggesting is that we need to have more communication, and your ideas need to go through committees, like the Finance Committee, et cetera, instead of bringing them to the council for a full vote or giving them less than 24 hours notice, saying, hey, you need to pass a moratorium. And then we have, in my opinion, a black eye. You have shock given to the development community, and this really can be quite damaging. All I'm saying is, Mayor Wheeler, you were elected, you carry out the policies that the council enacts. You are the chief executive officer, you're the administrator of that side of the government. You need to work with us, and we need to discuss these ideas more thoughtfully before we bring them up like we did 2 to 3 weeks ago.
And we will, Council President, we will continue. My briefings have been more comprehensive than you've seen in years, and I know that. There's more information. I'm keeping you up to speed. Now, I just want to say one thing, that while the development community may feel bruised, there's an entire community of folks who are either their children or their elderly parents or them are struggling with their rents and with affordability. They're feeling empowered. So we do have these conflicting, maybe they're conflicting issues, but I want you to know there are a lot of folks that are happy that I brought this forward and that you're considering it. And I do appreciate, by the way, I appreciate you having this discussion.
Yeah, and actually, on a positive note, I believe this was very, very beneficial. Let's get this out in the open. I do have one last question, and then I'll let go.
Sure.
And that is, your plan has basically, the ordinance you'd like us to consider is get rid of the 8-year tax exemption.
Yes.
Throw it out the window. Have a 12, but bringing it down so it's only for low income. So you have a monthly average rent for one person of $892, something like that.
Absolutely.
Totally understand that. Did you do the math on this as far as whether there's return on investment at all?
So, as far as a return on investment, here's what a sharpening in a pencil means. We're it here. So I can tell you right now, the rents are escalating at a pretty rapid rate. So as far as 6% return, now folks are going to have to relook at their numbers when you're talking about developing in a climate, especially downtown here, where the public just recently, we have an $11 million public investment downtown. Quincy Square, the city is committed to Quincy Square. It's going to be the premier public space in the county. You have more public investment with the roundabout and with the new infrastructure at Promenade going all the way from the bridge to Pacific Avenue. So you can't tell me that this type of public commitment downtown, especially with the newly completed Burwell facade, all of these things protect investment. So, I want to reevaluate risk when there's this much public investment downtown.
Right. Thank you. So my original question, just simple yes or no, did you do an ROI, or internal rate of return, figure out a hypothetical if this would pencil out? Now, the whole point I'm bringing this up.
I have an MBA, Mr. Younger. I've looked at this.
Well, thank you. I have an MBA,
Okay.
and I think there's others, and I'm
Okay.
also a CPA. We don't need to get into that
All
kind
right,
of
so
discussion.
I don't want to get into a pencil whipping contest. It may not come out well, so,
All right, so you're not going to answer the question. Thank you. I think we know the answer to that. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler.
okay, thank you.
Okay, folks, sorry for that. Well, guess what? I have to officially close the hearing now.